One final check. Is my audio still clear?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear po.
All right. All right. Welcome everyone to the championship round of the second PICPA Davao Debate Cup. I am Rick Nicholson Nalzaro, your master of ceremonies for today. So I think everyone is here and we have a lot of audience members today. So it's a good thing for a lot of students to be participating and witnessing this particular event. We're particularly proud with the two grand finalists that we have today, and we hope we're gonna have an awesome debate tournament today. All right, so if you can still see my screen, what we're going to do now is to just go through a few things before we start the actual debate round. So the first one is we're going to present our panel of judges. So the first member of our panel of judges is a quarter finalist of the University of Cebu Conrad Adenauer Stiftung Singapore Environmental Moot Court 2018. He is the best debater of JMC Law School debate competition in 2017, an oralist in Justicia Moot Court Competition 2018 in Makati, and is a researcher in the Justicia Moot Court Competition both in 2017 and 2019. Let's all welcome with a virtual round of applause, Sir Al Amen Silo, CPA.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, sir. Our next member of the panel of judges is a four-time Mindanao champion of the 34th, 35th, 38th, and 39th Mindanao Parliamentary Debate Championship. She is a champion, the finals best speaker, and the seventh best speaker of the second Mindanao Intervarsity. She is a two-time Open National Quarter finalist in the NDC 2016 and 2017, a two-time Union Cup Grand finalist in the National Debate Championship in 2017 and 2018 as well. She is an Open Octo finalist in NDC 2018, an Open Quarter finalist in the Philippine Intercollegiate Debate Championship in 2018, a Union Cup semi-finalist in the National Debate Championship in 2016, and is the Grand finalist, the tournament's best speaker in both the 36th Mindanao Parliamentary Debate Championship and the Mindanao Urban Peace Debates. That's all virtually welcomed by Makabanggit of MSU Iligan Institute of Technology. A round of applause, please.
Thank you.
All right. Completing the panel of judges is an Open Octo finalist in the 10th and is the 10th best Loxondonta ESL speaker of the Uhuru World's Debating Championships in 2021, a Sinag Cup Grand finalist in PIDC 2017, a semi-finalist, second best speaker and in the Philippine IHL Debate 2016, is the champion, finals best speaker, and the fourth best speaker in the Davao Intervarsity 2018, the tournament's best judge in MPDC 2018, third best judge in MPDC BP 2017, the eighth best judge in the Visayas Mindanao Debating Championship in 2015, the second best judge in CPDC 2017. Yours truly, Rick Nicholson Nazaro. Anyways, we're just going through these particular things. I don't want to discuss my own credentials. But anyways, again, I welcome everyone, especially the competing debaters and the panel of judges to today's championship round of the second PICPA Davao Debate Cup. Before we proceed, we're going to run through some general debate rules as well. So the first one is this debate competition will adopt a modified Asian parliamentary debate format, and each team shall be composed of only 3 members from the same school. There will be 2 sides to the debate, government or affirmative side and negative or opposition side. Affirmative needs to defend the motion while the negative side needs to oppose the motion. All right. Next, we have the flow of speakers. We will start with the Prime Minister coming from government side, to be followed by the Leader of the Opposition, to be followed by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, and to be ended by the Government Whip and the Opposition Whip. For the speaking time, each speaker is given 7 minutes and 15 seconds to deliver his or her speech, and the judge will stop taking down notes after the 7th minute and 15-second mark. Also, there's no mandatory POI rule in this tournament for the audience and for everyone. Points of information or POIs are 15-second interjections raised by speakers, raised to speakers by their own opponents. Again, POIs need to be raised and needs to be accepted before it can be verbally said in a particular round. POIs may be used to clarify a matter, to insert a short rebuttal, or to give an example, etc., etc. There's a protected time for the speaking time of every speaker. So the first and the last minute will be protected, meaning there's no POI or no POIs may be raised or launched during such time. Also, we're going to run through just a few disconnection policies, just so we get to be prepared for what might happen in the worst case. So first one is we're going to do a roll call later on. So again, before the start of the actual round, we will do a roll call, and if a speaker is missing, he or she will be given 5 minutes to confirm his or her attendance. Otherwise, one of his or her teammates will have to replace him or her and give the speech in behalf of him or her. Secondly, for early disconnection, if all of the members of one team are missing before the start of the round, they will all be given 15 minutes in total to confirm attendance. While that time is running, we're going to pull in a swing team just in case the missing team will not be able to confirm their attendance. And upon the lapse of the 15-minute allowance, the swing team will permanently replace such missing team. For speaker disconnection during the round, if the current speaker is suddenly cut off or disconnected, his or her timer will be paused and will be given 5 minutes to reconnect and finish his or her speech. Otherwise, if that speaker is not able to reconnect, he or she, or rather, his or her teammates will have to replace him or her and finish the speech on behalf of him or her. And in such case, the teammate replacing the missing speaker can either start again or continue the paused speaker time. For team disconnection during the round, again, only registered members of the team can replace the missing speaker, and late-minute changes in the composition of the team is not allowed today. So consequently, if all the members of the team are disconnected in the middle of the round, all of them will be given 15 minutes to reconnect. And while the time is running, again, a swing team will be pulled in just in case that particular missing team does not make it within the 15-minute cutoff. Upon the lapse of that 15-minute allowance, the swing team permanently replaces the missing team. For intermittent connection, in case of intermittent connections, like for example, the current speaker may be inaudible or cannot be heard, his or her timer will be paused, and we will be giving him or her 15 minutes to fix his or her technical problem, whether it's internet connection or a defective headset or microphone, etc. And after that, we're going to allow him or her to finish his speech. Otherwise, if that particular speaker is not able to continue because of bad connection or intermittent connection, repeated or constant intermittent connection, one of his or her teammates will have to replace him or her. And again, that particular replacing teammate may either start the time from scratch or may continue the given time. For intermittent connections, please be reminded that you will be given a maximum of 3 tries to fix your technical problem within that 5-minute allowance. And then after that, hopefully we don't deal with this, but after that, someone in your team might have to replace you in the worst case. For judge disconnection, it's okay. as long as there's at least one judge who has never been disconnected or has not been cut off in any of the speaker's speeches. And if all of the judges had experienced at least one instance of disconnection, the debate round might be stopped and a new round shall begin, either with the same motion or a different one. Of course, it's not going to happen today because we're going to pre-release the motion. So we're going to reschedule the motion, the new schedule for the championship round in the case that all of the judges would be disconnected because of some unfortunate event, which we are not praying. All right. What's the effect of disconnection? Please be reminded that the disconnection of one or two debaters in the same team shall not result to an automatic win, meaning the judges will still be required to evaluate the entirety of the debate and the cases that have been presented by both sides. So it does not matter if there are 3 members or 2 members or only one remaining member. We're still going to evaluate the cases as it is, and any disconnection will not affect to an automatic win or an automatic loss. All right, since we're done with the general reminders and at the same time the introduction of our panel of judges, let's do an initial roll call of the grand finalists. First, from Ateneo de Davao University, please say here if you are here. Jeanelle Deocampo, are you here?
Here.
All right. Alyssa Jane Samosino, are you here?
Here.
All right. Sophia Shaira Manibpel, are you here?
Here.
Perfect. All right. For negative side, we have University of Mindanao Main Campus. Adrian Saturinas, are you here?
Here.
All right. Hillary Karen Abalo, are you here?
Here.
All right. Ian Dela Peña, are you here?
Here.
All right, perfect. So all of our debaters or participants are here, so we will be proceeding to the grand finals in a while. And it's perfect because it's already 10:01. Just a few final reminders for everyone. Debaters, you're not allowed to browse the internet during the round. Also, you're not allowed to open and read books and other electronic resources. If you've printed your speeches, it's okay. If you've written them down, it's okay. But you can't read electronic resources, meaning search in Google or in a search engine and then read through the resources that you can read there. Again, all the preparations and the research must have been done before the round, and the violation of this particular provision is a ground for disqualification. And in such case, we're going to call in a swing team to compete in behalf of you against the remaining speakers. So again, please, let's not cheat. I'm sure you're not gonna cheat because you're future CPAs and integrity is one of our core principles. So just a reminder. Secondly, sorry, I didn't change the title. It should have been about communications. So debaters, you're allowed to chat your teammates, but you're not allowed to chat anyone else other than your teammate. So you can't chat your coaches or your moderators or your friends so that they can help you with a rebuttal, give you an example, etc., etc. Again, coaching and communication to anyone else for the purpose of increasing a team's chance of winning, whether it is effective or not effective, is strictly prohibited. And again, violation of this provision is a ground for disqualification, and a swing team will be called if this particular event does happen. For the camera setup, we recognize that not everyone has a good internet connection or it does not have like a very expensive data plan. So all debaters are not required to turn on their video cameras, especially if some of us or some of the debaters or judges have limited data plans or intermittent internet connection. Finally, and most importantly, for equity rules, all debaters, speakers, coaches, and audience members are required to be polite and maintain decorum before, during, and after each debate round. So we understand that everyone is going to gun for their favorite speakers and favorite teams, but please be courteous and be polite. Speakers in particular are disallowed to state or make sweeping generalizations about people who come from religious, racial, or sexual minorities, persons with disabilities, and other groups of people with protected attributes. This means that you cannot say sweeping generalizations such as like Muslims are terrorists or like gay people should go to hell. You can't make these sweeping generalizations, and disciplinary action will be given by the chairperson for student participation if there is a material and persistent violation of this equity provision. So again, let's just be kind to each other and make sure that we are courteous and make our arguments be the centerpiece of our win, and not ad hominem attacks that attack someone's identity, etc., etc. All right. Are you ready to transform? Because I'm very, very sure that I am. So if everyone is set, I think we're ready to start the championship round for the second PICPA Davao Debate Cup. Again, congratulations to the teams making it to the grand finals. So I hope this would be a very, very nice round today. All right. So for our motion, we've already pre-released the motion last Saturday. So we have an info slide. Sara Duterte Carpio, during that time, is the daughter of the current president of the Philippines and currently serves as the mayor of Davao City. Many have been independently campaigning for her to run for presidency, but she has not expressed any intention to do so at that time. In an interview, she officially responded to this, saying that even if we will not run for president, in our show of strength and unity, we are able to uplift many Filipino families in need. The motion for the grand finals on Philippine politics and feminism is, assuming Sara Duterte runs for the presidency in the 2022 Philippine elections, this House, as a feminist, would not support Sara Duterte. All right, let's call upon Jeanelle Deocampo from Ateneo de Davao University, our Prime Minister, to defend the honor that stands in his name. Here.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, and my co-debaters and adjudicators, a pleasant morning to all of you. It is difficult to live as a woman in the era of President Rodrigo Duterte. Not that the previous administrations had it easy, since history demonstrates that women have historically faced discrimination, whether in colonial or post-colonial Philippine society. Having the current administration in the country's highest office, on the other hand, has done nothing to advance the women's movement, in fact, has set it back several decades. In lieu of the motion, the government side of the House would like to define the following terms. Firstly, that feminism in the context of this debate is the movement and protest of feminists in suppressing and combating the proliferation of sexual harassment and the deeming misogynism in our country, adhering to the agenda of the fourth wave of feminism in the Philippines as per international pursuance in relevance to our status quo. Secondly, that a feminist in the context of this debate is a group of people or public figure whom, regardless of his or her gender, are advocates and supports the feminist movement by lobbying the status quo that women face in lieu of the proliferation of gender-biased violence and sexual harassment in the Philippines. That is why it is very important in this debate that the assessment of whether Sara Duterte should be supported by the feminist movement must not only lie on her legal qualifications herself to run, but also on the implications whether she is of the best interest upon her underlying agendas and platforms, of whether this brings best incentives for the feminist movement. And as her having little to no expression of her dissent against the misogynist perspective of the current administration, criticized the hashtag Babae Ako movement that was recognized by Time magazine as one of the most influential movements in the world in 2016, and as a local chief executive of her locality who failed to mitigate the gender-based violence and crimes in Davao City, this House, pursuant as a feminist and its cause, will not support Sara Duterte, assuming that she will run for presidency in the 2022 Philippine elections, mainly for 3 reasons. Firstly, Sara Duterte running for presidency does not necessarily represent the agendas of the feminist movement, as she remains to be silent in inhibiting the current administration's degrading perspective and statements to women. Secondly, pushing Sara Duterte for presidency, despite her lack of passion and platform for feminism, would compromise the principles of Sara and the feminists. Lastly, and our third point, the interest of the feminist cause is best achieved in pursuing a politician whose agenda prioritizes the current wave of the feminism, which is combating sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny. I am Jeanelle Deocampo, the Prime Minister of the House. Women's disadvantaged position in the society has not changed at all. The ill effects of COVID-19 pandemic on the country's standpoint of pursuant to eradicate sexual harassment and internalized misogynism in the society has worsened as the incidence of these things are more now likely to happen in a local setting and a domestic setting given the COVID-19 pandemic. And the recent study of Plan International revealed that almost half of women in the Philippines experience sexual harassment in their lives. Yet, the current administration seems to fail to acknowledge the disadvantaged position of women by objectifying, creating rape jokes, and internal misogynism. It is relevant to this debate to tie back in the aspiration of the Filipino feminist movement, which is to protect women from violence and preemption of their capabilities based on their gender. That is why in the contention of our side of the House, where we create our standards of our basis of support to a candidate whom is any politician or public servant, regardless of his or her gender, who is being eyed as a presidential candidate and who has been inherently advocating for women protection even before the notion of the presidential candidacy, upholding the principle of the fourth wave of feminism by dissenting misogynism and degrading of women while providing access to resources in order to elevate the status quo of women who are being sexually harassed and coerced in the society. And due to the fact that Sara Duterte's inactive partaking in the said movement and said qualification, it is then justifiable and logical for us to argue our first point. Firstly, that Sara Duterte running for presidency does not necessarily represent the agendas of the feminist movement, as she remains to be silent in inhibiting the current administration's degrading perspective and statements to women. While she has been vocal about how she was mistreated of her gender, people can't help but see her as complicit or an enabler of her father, which is President Rodrigo Duterte's misogynistic actions in the past. When he made a rape joke during the presidential campaign, Mayor Duterte admitted that she was a rape victim too. But she also said that she wasn't offended by the remark. She never spoke up against many times her father made disrespectful jokes towards women, including the controversial shoot in the vagina statement. In 2016, Sara Duterte also criticized the Babae Ako movement by saying that the movement was bound to be doomed and a protest of weakness, where weeks after the aforementioned movement was then recognized by the Time magazine as one of the most influential movements in the world. Lastly, as a local chief executive, she fails to mitigate the deeming prevalence of rape and sexual abuse occurring in Davao City. As per recent report of the Police Regional Office in Davao City, there has been 69 cases of abuse from January to June, from which 64 of it are rape cases. Given of her lack of interest and dedication to champion the cause of the movement, this House firmly believes that Sara Duterte is not the best persona to be supported by us. The feminist who seeks of a political icon who has been inherently vocal and pragmatically engaged in the protection of women from sexual harassment and gender-based violence. Furthermore, our side of the House believes that someone who has been inherently working to public service, combating the ills of society, and providing legal aid in the marginalized and indigents, such as Attorney Chel Jokno, who has been dedicating himself in volunteerism by making access to legal intervention more inclusive and expressive of his support towards the feminist movement, is a far more promising and logical political icon who can far more better off pursue the contention of our side of the House representing the feminist movement. And it is important to know that even if we will not have Sara Duterte on our support, it is still possible to achieve the goal of the feminist movement, which is to protect at all costs form of harassment and eradicate misogynism with a candidate who has been an inherent and ally and a course platform which have been pursuing the goals of the feminist movement. The Philippines may have been far from the feminist ideal of solidarity and care before the era of Duterte, but the women's movement at least did not have a head of state that is so hostile that it has nullified decades of hopeful process. To have a president address and suppress patriarchal values and institutions in the Philippine society is the main way that we can improve the situation of women in the country. In order for women to truly achieve free from the backward mindset that fuels gender oppression, it is imperative to demand for a government, for a president that sees women as people and its cause as a relevant case, not as ornaments, objects, or nuances, or butt of jokes born from obsolete humor. And as Sara Duterte remains to be inactive and contrary in the pursuance of the cause of the feminist movement, this House, as a feminist, will not support Sara Duterte, assuming that she will run for presidency in the 2022 Philippine elections. And with that, I temporarily rest our case.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 11 seconds. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. To proceed with the clash of opposition side, let's call upon Adrian Saturinas of University of Mindanao. Here, here.
Hello. So, am I audible?
Loud and clear,
Thank you,
Adrian.
sir. So, I'm going to start my profile. 3, 2, 1. To the adjudicators, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I proceed with my arguments, allow me to reiterate some points raised by the Prime Minister of the government side. The Prime Minister has said that Sara does not support for the best interest of the women. That is not true. Sara and the city government of Davao has been very active in protecting the rights of women and children in our city. In fact, in every barangay, there is a helpline or help desk wherein people or those domestically abused women could ask for help, and that it is not true that it is not that Sara Duterte is not truly protecting or promoting for the interest of the women. And he also said that Mayor Rodrigo Duterte has been a very bad example for those misogynist or anti-feminist movement. And again, it's his father. It's his own belief. It's not it's his own belief, and it's not tantamount to a fact. And it does not represent the majority. In the end, it is the people who will select. Sara Duterte is a separate or another individual who has her own free will. She has also her own understanding, and that she could act differently from her father. Now,
POI, Mr.
allow
Speaker.
now allow me to raise my points why we oppose to the idea of not supporting Sara Duterte for a reason of being a feminist. Now, what is feminism? According to Britannica.com, feminism is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. A feminist believes that men and women are equal, and women deserve the same rights as men in society. The feminist movement has fought for many different causes, such as the right of women to vote, the right to work, and the right to live free from violence. In a sense, we could say that this ideology has helped in shedding a light for women to be treated fairly. The million-dollar question is, should this ideology be used as the basis of not giving support to Sara Duterte's bid for presidency? And if yes, then this is when feminists goes beyond the border of what they fight for. A politician should not be judged solely based on ideologies, but rather be critiqued based on their leadership skills or way of governance. Same goes with the voters. They must not be clouded nor caged with an idea that might cover their eyes from the good leadership and governance a certain candidate possesses. If one does not like nor appreciate the way of governance of Sara Duterte, then it is his or her choice not to vote for her. But never ever use the idea that you are a feminist, so you won't vote for her. It is baseless and it doesn't make any sense at all.
POI,
Basing
Mr.
our
Speaker.
basing our life decisions on ideologies is a manifestation of our lack of free will and understanding. Instead of using critical thinking and extensive decision making, one limits himself or herself in an idea. And in an article published in Times Malta, they defined ideology as something that is employed to denote beliefs, passions, values, and political philosophies and a vision of the world. And according to a known revolutionary sociologist, historian, and economist, Karl Marx, ideologies were false systems. Again, it's a false system of political, social, and moral concept invented and preserved by ruling classes to feather their own nest, and a widely held opinion considers them to be social formulas or belief systems that can be used to mobilize people for action. Today, the pejorative aspect of ideology has come to the fore in the current usage of the term. Modern ideologies have turned out to be an emotional affair, relying more on propaganda than on rational persuasion. For instance, nationalism is an ideology that exalts the nation. It is a feeling that enkindles in people a love for their fatherland and strengthens in them that belief that their country is worthy of respect and is perhaps even superior than others. And there is no denying that it has been a moving force in the liberation of colonial people. Asia and Africa are prime examples. Of course, nationalism is not always a bad thing. It has inspired processes which led to national sovereignty, as well as providing a convincing means to make individuals live together in effective societies. But this ideology becomes dangerous when it assumes aggressive and intolerant forms. Because of it, people may forget that there is a higher love than the love of country, the love of truth, justice, and righteousness. And every nation is duty bound to foster a truly worldwide cooperation for the common good of the whole of humanity. And nationalist ideologies may turn into detestable extremism when they become linked with racism and outbursts of xenophobia. And in the context of the ideology of feminism, this ideology had been used to discredit great leaders. Just because the politician is related to someone who does not support their causes, or they perceive a politician as a threat to their ideology, they would cancel them. Now let's talk about good governance. According to the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, good governance has 8 major characteristics. It is participatory, consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, equitable and equitable and inclusive, and follows the rule of law. It assures that corruption is minimized, the views of minorities are taken into account, and that voices of the most vulnerable in society are heard in decision making. It is also responsive to the present and future needs of the society. This is a concept that a feminist should take into account in choosing for the next leaders. In a sense, canceling a good politician because of he or she is related to someone who does not support to their causes, or that they have perceived him or her as a threat to their ideology, is actually selfishness. Again, it's a selfishness because they only consider their own interests. As such, we don't want an ideology to determine the fate of our nation. To cut the chase, feminists should recalibrate their minds and align their ideology to the concepts such as good governance for the greater good and progressive nation. And with this, we highly oppose.
Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 39 seconds. Thank you so much, Leader of Opposition. To provide us the extension for government side, let's call upon Alyssa Jane Samosino of Ateneo Davao University for her speech. Hear, hear.
Here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've fought for feminism over the centuries. As feminists, we do agree that its advocacy of protecting all sexes is important. However, as we delve into feminist politics, we would not support her given the principal mismatch and the criteria that we feminists expect to our leaders. I'm going to give extensions as to why pushing Sara could compromise her and our principles, and explain why it is the best interest of the feminists on our side. But before that, let's engage to a couple of principles of arguments that the opposition has presented. They said that when we're voting for a candidate, we do and when a candidate is fighting for presidency, he or she does not use their ideologies and such as feminism, but only focus on the leadership. We think that this is problematic when I tell you that feminism, as characterized by our prime minister, is not an ideology, but it's a movement. It is a movement that in pursuance to pave the way for avenues and for women and children to acquire platforms and reap off the protection of the state that has been lobbying over the centuries now. And we think that as the opposition side stating that we're canceling Sara Duterte, we think that this is a misunderstanding and the spirit of motion, because even if this is true, we're not actually canceling Sara Duterte. We are not just supporting just because we are feminists. And as voters, we are entitled of our own principles. We are entitled of our own movement of who we should put in that specific position and that higher authority to dwell with our movement, to dwell with our principles of who we want to help, who we want to address in this minority in the society. But even if this is true that Sara does fit in the candidate, we think that even if Sara does have that leadership, the qualities of a president that we're looking for, but we think that in the spirit of motion, we are a feminist and we are on the run of addressing issues that we want to address as a feminist movement. And we think that our position drives more in the spirit of mission, and that the opposition side has failed to grapple the status quo and context of these debates. But to extend our case and the principal mismatch, as feminists, pushing Sara Duterte for presidency despite her lack of passion and platform for feminism would compromise the principles of Sara and the feminists. Why so? As members of the movement, we are incentivized to support icons of our movement, someone who could forward our feminist principles at best. Delving into Sara's character, she is not the most ideal person who can best forward our cause. She is not the most although she has the unique platforms in her leadership, it does not align to our principles. This is the risk involved in campaigning for her. Pushing Sara under the feminist campaign, the feminist support would require relatively for her to realign her platforms that would only compromise upon the advocacy she has started ever since the leadership in the local government. Pushing ourselves to support Sara, who is not experienced, prominently aligning her principles would also compromise our very own incentive of choosing the right person to represent our movement, to represent our cause. Let's take, for instance, we've known about Sara being an inhibitor to the condemnation of her father towards women, and that she has expressed no dissent and interest to these matters in the very first place. She has already failed to address these issues herself, not just a daughter of the president, but a politician who swears by the equality for all. As feminists, if we push Sara to the movement and disregard all our own principles, it only tells that we could compromise our movement for the sake of the opportunity of a female president and eventually lose our credibility as a movement. What we're trying to prove here is that our principles identify who we are in this society. Simply compromising for the convenience tells more about us as members of this movement than our cause. So what? Tying back to the goal of getting feminist representation in higher political authority, we would want someone who can forward this passionately without a slightest intention of political agenda. Sara is best at leading at local, and if she wants to reroute to feminist cause, it's better for her to start local. But again, we scrutinize according to the criteria that aligns to our movement. We think that pushing Sara, thus compromising her and our principles, will only serve detrimental to our movement. And secondly, the interest of the Filipino feminist is best achieved in pursuit of a politician whose agenda prioritizes the current wave of feminism, combating sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny. Why so? We think that a politician whose agenda aligns to the current and relevant wave will best advance the feminist movement. This politician can forward programs and opportunities for these advocacies to fully establish in the society. Thus, we think that Shell Jokna, our alternative and proposition side, who is a human rights lawyer whose humanitarian principles involves advocating protection for all sexes and legal assistance to sexual abuse victims, is a more plausible candidate. For example, the Sara Duterte we can see that Sara Duterte has included women empowerment in some of her talks and dissemination of her platform that is a faction of feminism. And dissemination of platform, but we still share as feminists, we think that it's also important to consider the wave of feminism we're in, that is protection of both sexes and sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny. We get that opposition side could argue how Sara, and at the best case scenario, could realign her principles to the feminist movement, and the positive burden it gives to her will still be valid. But however, historical employed feminist movements have been persistent in lobbying their platforms in the government. Despite pressure given off by such protests, still little to no address happens, because what we're trying to prove here, there is a dire necessity for an inherent feminist politician who is widely aware of the current wave of the feminism to effectively address the existing issues. So what? It is the best interest of a Filipino feminist to support a president who has been dedicating his or her advocacies to support misogyny, like Shell Joknoy himself. Doing this would best amplify the movement's principles and forward actual solutions in the status quo, the very goal of this debate. At the end of the day, it is not enough to assert that women can lead, because that is an easy argument. What needs to be scrutinized is how these politicians position themselves in the specific and current spectrum of the feminist politics, and whether their election would bring in something to substantiate that they can lead in a way that would be different from what non-feminists do. It is now the burden of the opposition side to explain to us how could Sara deliver the feminist cause effectively, given that her platform does not align to the feminist movement in itself, and in our character as voters of this motion. For all of these reasons, we're proud to propose.
All right, speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 55 seconds. Thank you so much, Deputy Prime Minister. To provide us the extension for opposition side, let's call upon Ian de la Peña of University of Mindanao Main Campus for his speech. Here.
Good morning, here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, let me start in 3, 2, 1. To start off, as the leader of opposition mentioned, that politicians should not be judged solely on the base of ideologies, but rather be critic based on their leadership skills and governance. However, the Deputy Prime Minister offered that Inday Sara is not into movement of feminism, where in fact Inday Sara is not into the women, not into issues with women discrimination and lack of passion when it comes to women movement, where in fact in Davao City, Mayor Inday Sara issued an ordinance in 2011, a proclamation declaring every November 25th of each year declaring a day in Davao City where in zero VAUSI or the violence against women. And also in Davao City, Inday Sara highly promotes the zero tolerance of VAUSI in any forms. And in fact, she created the Integrated Gender Development Division in and Barangay VAUSI desk in every barangay. And just what like the leader of opposition said, that every barangay has a hotline for VAUSI. Thus, the opposition believe that the response of the Deputy Prime Minister is inadequate to refute the argument presented by the leader of the opposition. And thus, the leader of opposition's argument still stands. Now let me proceed to my argument. And aside from that, the Deputy Prime Minister said that Inday Sara has not realigned its platform towards the movement of feminism, where in fact again Davao City is pioneering city in implementing the VAUSI or the violence against women and children. Mayor Inday Sara remains the strongest presidential because of her excellent track record performance and exceptional leadership. Sara Zimmerman Duterte Carpio, known as Inday Sara to the Philippine public, has been a mayor of Davao City since 2010 after her father's tenure reached its term limit. The latest Pulse Asia survey indicates that the Davao City's Dragon Lady Mayor is truly the leading presidential candidate, where in fact Inday Sara received a higher whooping of 27% of the said survey. Inday is projecting the same image as her father, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, which is being a decisive person, being a person that is result-oriented and a person that is finding a definite result. At this moment of time, when the Philippines is facing a grave and imminent threat posed by a volatile and unpredictable pandemic with unparalleled scale and far-reaching repercussions, Filipino voters require such leader like Inday Sara. Being a mayor, Inday Sara has a strong political will, courage, and passion to serve others. Within Davao City, where in fact it manifests on how Davao City progress. And Davao City, as we all know, that Davao City is considered as the highly urbanized city in the Philippines. According to the study conducted by Dr. John Vian Murcia, a specialist of the University of Mindanao's Institute of Popular Opinion, he found out that Davao City ranks as the second most livable city in the Philippines. And with this, the Davao City transformation from being the murder capital of the Philippines to the second fastest growing economic region is closely tied to the exceptional leadership of the Duterte family, including Inday Sara. That is according to the Competitiveness Index Award last 2020. And also, Davao City is considered as the second of the top safest city in the Southeast Asia. That is according to the survey conducted by Nuambeo.com. And it implies that the good leadership of the local chief executives and the solid support system of the constituent of Mayor Inday Sara, truly adheres that Davao City and her exemplary performance prevails in his deeds. And lastly, in fact, Davao City is consistently ranked among the top 5 list of highly urbanized cities since 2015. So to conclude, the opposition strongly holds its position that Sara Duterte must run for president in 2022. And change the language. We must change the language to change the movement. We only focus on the differences, and we are divided with these differences. The opposition believes that feminism is a gender-specific language. It only focuses on the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. Therefore, we consider a feminism a gender qualifier that gets in a way leaving people behind. So perhaps the word feminism has outlived at this present time. The saying goes by, change is the only constant thing in this world. We don't have to be a feminist or use the word feminism to want equality. So if equality is what we want, then equality is the word we should be using. Why? Because when we change the language, we change the movement. That would be all. Thank you.
All right, speaker spoke for 5 minutes and 58 seconds. Thank you, Ian. To proceed with the last speaker of government side, let's call upon Sophia Shaira Manibpel of Ateneo Davao University to proceed with her speech. Here.
I'll start in, wait, set up my timer. I'll start in 3, in 3, 2, 1. This debate is not a question on whether Sara Duterte can lead or not, because of course she can. She's a politician from a family of politicians. But let's go back to the motion of this debate, in the motion that's given to us, which the opposition failed to follow on, with feminism on the conversation. I would want to emphasize that not all women politicians or any politician like Sara Duterte upholds the values of a feminist leader, in which the opposition has been even conceding off because of their wanting to push Sara to be a leader and neglecting the fact of feminism. Now, moreover, to summarize what transpired in this debate, the Prime Minister of the government side has provided you with an argument that the unvocal and inactive platforms of Sara Duterte for the protection of women is not only detrimental to the feminist movements, but also to the Filipino women and the general population of the Philippines. Now, here comes my Deputy Prime Minister extending that for pushing Sara Duterte for presidency, despite her lack of passion and platform for feminism, it would compromise the principles of Sara and the feminists, as she also gave us an argument that the interest of a feminist cause is best achieved in pursuing a politician whose agenda prioritizes the current wave of feminism, combating sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny, as this debate is all about where feminism is better achieved. Now, on the other side, the opposition bench gave us arguments with their, to summarize their point, is that Sara Duterte is we should neglect the fact of feminism because Sara Duterte is a leader and advocates for good governance. Now, I would like to forward 2 main rebuttals, namely why our opponent's proposal is ineffective and ultimately counterproductive. Now, our opponents claim that their policy in which supporting Sara for presidency will be effective because she is a leader and an advocate of good governance. I would want to question this debate. Does it align to our feminist movement? Because the motion said that as a feminist. Now, does it guarantee forwarding our principles in a national context? Now, I would also want to acknowledge that they kept on mentioning about the current state of Davao City right now. But yes, the Davao City is what it is right now. But the question is, does it align to the feminist movement that the motion or the goal of this debate is pushing for. Now, even if she presented the Vauci in Davao in 2011, however, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to remind everyone that this is the crafted legislation of her father, the former mayor of Davao City, President Rodrigo Duterte, and only in die, Sara ripped off of the after effects of the legislation that she did not create, but rather took place in her administration. If Sara poses the same proposition of PRRD as claimed by my deputy or as claimed as the deputy leader of opposition, then it is a more problematic implication that she is most likely to follow the misogynistic manifestations of the current administration. Now, furthermore, our opponents' arguments are likely to be counterproductive because the end goal of this debate is where feminism is better achieved, but they kept neglecting on feminism in this debate, as the idea of advocating feminism and wanting to support a candidate who in the first place isn't vocal and active in supporting feminism principles is precisely the kind of counterproductive movement the government bench wants to get rid of, as we want a leader to push for the presidency that that champions feminism in the national government and upholds feminism in all of his platform per se. Now, why we are right in this debate. Now, my prime minister was the person who explained to you that Sara's inactive platforms towards the feminist movement would be detrimental to the Filipino women and the general population of the Philippines. Now, allow me to elaborate the situation. Now, one has to ask what did Duterte Carpi say about, or if she ever criticized the misogyny of her father when he issued a joke about raping a dead nun, or when he publicly divulged digitally raping his helper, or when he ordered soldiers to shoot the sexual organs of captured women rebels. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if she was ever a symbolism of feminism, she would not go mum on these issues. She would not tolerate it. And we need a leader who is active on feminism, not just a leader who is advocating for good governance. Now, another thing that is that as a feminist leader, one must advocate for gender equality. But what she's doing right now is just being stagnant on holding the image of a strong, powerful woman, which should not just be the case, because as a leader, she should push for advocacies and movements, especially feminism right now, since she's assuming that she's running for presidency. Now, furthermore, it was my deputy prime minister who mentioned that the interest of feminist cause is best achieved when we introduce a new politician whose agenda prioritizes the current waves of feminism. Now, it is in this sense that you would want to question yourself that as a feminist, would you rather support a politician with no feminist agenda, or if there's a little feminist agenda, or champion feminism with a politician with a strong feminist movement? Among all these politicians who showed their interest in running for the 2022 national elections is Child Jokno, who actively advocates for humanitarian principles, which can be equated to feminism, ladies and gentlemen. His advocacies are inherent to human rights and in providing free access of legal aid to the minority. He is also the president of FLAG, the Free Legal Assistance Group, which somehow can aid women who experience sexual harassment to be able to acquire legal intervention. Now, even if the worst case of our model is the low chances of Jokno winning, it is still better than the best case of the opposition bench, which is Sara Duterte leading in different polls and is a leader. Let us acknowledge the fact that even with Jokno's low chances of winning right now, the possibility that the table can be turned is high, because first and foremost, campaign period hasn't even started yet. Second, there are no posters made for Jokno like Run Sara Run posted around, and yet Jokno's name has been making noise already. Not to mention that even with the worst case of the government bench, this house as a feminist would still and rather support Jokno, because the goal of this debate is where feminism is better forwarded and achieved. And it is achieved in our paradigm. It is because Jokno is active in upholding feminist principles and can really forward it to the presidential campaign and presidential table. Sara, on the other hand, can stay on the local government and reflect on those times that she became mom on the misogyny of his father, reflect on her actions during those times that she punched different men, which is not very gender equality, and her advocacies, which she even criticized a feminist movement taking the babae ako movement. With this, feminism can be championed with Jokno, and Sara Duterte can move forward and develop a better view of feminism on the local government first rather than presidency. Therefore, for all of these reasons, I am proud to propose.
Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 35 seconds. Thank you so much, Government Whip, to finally rest the case for opposition side and end this debate. Let's call upon Hillary Karen Abalo from University of Mindanao to wrap up the case for opposition. Here.
I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I am the opposition whip, and I'm here to point out the different policies provided by the government side. So first of all, the Prime Minister pointed out that Mayor Inday Sara do not represent the feminist movement, therefore should not be supported to run as the president. So ladies and gentlemen, does a candidate for presidency be discredited without taking into account all her experiences and achievements? I bet not. What the government side is proposing to all of you is that they will happily lead our nation by being discrediting, biased, and not inclusive at all. And thank you so much for those twisted reasons as to why we should not support Mayor Inday Sara by solely taking into account her so-called lack of support for feminist movement according to the government side. We agree that the government side that the president, if most importantly a female, should also advocate for females' rights, which Mayor Inday Sara actually did with her VAUSI campaign, as what mentioned by our deputy opposition side. And as what the government side has said about Mayor Inday Sara as being inactive with her activities supporting the VAUSI campaign, I think, and we all know, being a Davaoeño, that Mayor Inday Sara is not after the media exposures at all, but works silently. And that can be proved by testimonies by females here in our city, in which I personally can walk at night in our city safely. With that, the government side does not see that our future candidate for presidency is someone that is not limited on ideologies like the feminist movement, but someone that is strong-willed and full of advocacies that can touch and address all of the current dilemma that our country is currently experiencing, and not just define her and enclose her within our definition of what should a female leader be. And now, moving on to the refutes that the government side have constantly attacked us with the idea that they will only support a candidate that will support the objectives and goals of the feminist movement, is the thing that they are actually missing on the general context of choosing who we should support as our future leader. That was what we are trying to prove, in which you did not refute. The one who is not leading towards the core purpose of choosing and supporting a leader that is our country should choose is the government side, and the one that is leading toward the core purpose of supporting a leader that is based on experience and reputable leadership over ideologies like feminism is the opposition side. What the opposition team wanted to emphasize is that people should not be enclosed about their selfish ideologies of feminism, which leads to strongly canceling people who do not come sanely embodied of what they perceive them to be, but rather be open to leaders who are proven to be great based on their evident achievements and reputable experience in public service. And that is just like Mayor Inday Sara. Also, we should take into account the way of governance of how candidates like Inday Sara proved that a city like Davao can be as great and impressive like other cities in the world. And she's single-handedly done that despite all of the criticisms. It is, after all, the experience and the leadership over ideologies like feminism. With all that, running to be the president is not to be someone's ideal man or woman. If people don't see Sara as the next Philippine president and would not vie to support or vote for her, then people should better understand that claims should be based on evidences that someone can do this or that, and not because of her gender. And that, in that sense, we can see that Mayor Inday Sara, during her term in Davao City, proved that she did not only touch or focus her plans and advocacies in Davao City by only all other problems here in our city, but also she touched and supported the ideas, the objectives and goals of the feminist movement, though according to the government side, she is inactive, but we can see that she has strengthened the VAUSI campaign ever since 2011. In that sense, we can see that Mayor Inday Sara did not at all took part in supporting the feminist movement, just like any other candidates that they are talking about or they have mentioned in the previous arguments. But we all know, and we wanted to prove to all of you that Mayor Inday Sara, though despite her lack of media exposures, compared to the other candidates or compared to other potential candidates for presidency, she works silently and she supports the feminist movement, in which the government side should take into account. Instead of only supporting our future leader as someone that is limited solely on supporting the feminist movement, we should emphasize on the things that she can do despite being a local leader, local government executive, to being the future president of our country. We firmly believe that Mayor Inday Sara's experience in leading the largest city in the world in terms of landmass, composed, if not most, but considered a populous, as populous like others, also bringing the city towards the limelight of being one of the safest and most livable city in the world among thousands of candidates, speaks volume of how tantamount that experience is to be qualified and be supported as our next Philippine president. We should not define the title of the president based on how someone should focus on implementing activities or advocacies that only support one certain ideology, or maybe because of their gender, but rather we should support any candidate who possesses enough experience, qualified and outstanding leadership over long withstanding ideologies and stereotypes that we do have. In this sense, in the context of feminist movement, taking into account that Mayor Inday Sara has lacked, as what the government side had said, but we certainly prove and say that Mayor Inday Sara had done something enough for the feminist movement. But in this is not about an issue of being a feminist or an advocate of equality, but a sense of choosing a leader who is strong, caring, rational, and undeniably molded by time and experience, because choosing a leader is not about who is suitable based on our groundless and insensible claims about feminism, but we should let experience, achievements, time, and people tell about who is right for the position and deserving of all our support. For these reasons and facts, we believe that the opposition side provided stronger and more reasonable arguments, and we strongly oppose to the stand of the government side of not supporting Mayor Inday Sara to run as the president. If the female past presidents did and can, why Sarah can't?
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Thank you so much, Opposition Whip. Thank you, everyone. Can we give everyone a virtual round of applause for that very, very interesting and engaging debate? All right. Congratulations, everyone. That was indeed a very, very good debate. So now we're going to wrap up a few things before we end this particular Google Meet. Firstly, what about the cash prizes? We want to say and we want to announce that we're going to be giving cash prizes to the champion and the first runner-up at the same time, the finals best speaker. So the champion for the second PICPA Davao Debate Cup will be receiving 4,500 for the entire team. And the first runner-up will also be receiving a prize of 3,000 pesos for the team. And an additional 1,500 will be given to the finals best speaker based on the tabulation that will be based on the tabulation of results for this particular event. I think the most interesting and the most thrilling part about this year's second PICPA Davao Debate Cup is we're not going to announce the results immediately. We're going to announce the results during the culminating activity of the PICPA Davao Accountancy Week 2021, this July 16, 2021. That's on Friday. That's 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So if you guys want to know who won that particular debate, then you have to attend the culminating activity. Also, we're going to contact you guys regarding the cash prizes, so you don't have to worry about it. Again, we're very, very thankful from PICPA Davao in partnership with the National Federation of Junior Philippine Institute of Accountants, Region 11 chapter. We're very, very thankful for everyone's participation in this event. This would not have been possible without your with your participation, and at the same time your enthusiasm in vibrant critical discourse. Again, we would like to wish everyone a good day, and we hope that we would see everyone in the culminating activity this Friday, July 16. Thank you as well to our panel of judges, to Sir Al and Ms. Bai. Thank you so much for attending the grand finals. Before we end this particular Google Meet, I think it's a very good it's a good time now to do a photo op for a publication material. So I'd like to request everyone, even the audience members, you can turn on your cameras now and we'll do a short photo opportunity for publication materials. All right, let me stop sharing my screen first and then